Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a Capital Club exclusive series, Confessions of a Central Banker. Today we find ourselves, like I said before, in beautiful Tirana, Albania. I have the privilege of sitting down with a man that has achieved great things and has put Albania in the path of financial success. He is the former governor of the Central Bank of Albania and is now a board member of the Central Bank of Montenegro. Ardian Fullani, thank you for being here.
Thank you for inviting me. Nice to see you again.
It's good to see you.
In a year's time, huh?
We met a year ago.
Yeah, a year ago. Quite surprisingly so.
At the Capital Club event.
Yes.
You came and you spoke, and
yeah.
We had a great conversation, but you also had some great predictions.
I tried, huh?
Yeah.
I tried to keep my position, but also to be more, I should say, flexible, reluctant to discuss about the new financial initiatives, means innovating finance. And that was amazing for me. Met you, your colleagues, and had that open and very fruitful discussion. And I think you did a great leap from last year. I see what you are doing, and I see what we are going to discuss today, and there are a lot of question marks that have been last year, where there are not anymore. So that means
a lot of questions were answered.
Yeah.
Now,
so congratulations.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you for taking the time. I flew specifically to come see you because, there's a lot of chatter on the internet about central bank digital currencies. There's a lot of chatter on YouTube and TikTok about the central banks and monetary policy, but it's very rare that people have the ability to sit down and listen to a person that actually has experience, that has gone through the trials and tribulations, that has gone through the ups and downs of what you like to call financial chaos, and come on the other side successfully. So turmoils, yes. Take me a little bit back through your journey, through your professional career.
Right. So, Ardian Fullani, married with Ariana Fullani, judge, and two kids, Fiona and Eric, 32, 29. Banker, the daughter, and finishing the law now, the son, Eric. And now, 7 months ago, I have been graduated with a new title. I am the grandfather.
Congratulations.
Of my nephew, Ivan.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So, studied in Tirana with parents from Tirana, Elbasan. They've been always here. And studied economics in Albania. Finished at University of the 70s for financial economist. And then after working in different financial possibilities, financial enterprises and production enterprises until 85. In the meantime, I used my time to study law. And so I'm graduated in law. And I learned some foreign languages. So,
what languages do you speak?
English, Italian, German, but I understand also 2, 3 others.
In Albanian, I heard it's a difficult language to master.
No, Albanian is not a difficult one. No, I think the grammar is Latin. And of course, there is no links with other languages. So all the Indo-European language, they say. But it's melodic, it's nice, the Albanian one. It's an old language, it's a very old language. For hundreds of times has been only spoken and not written, so we use other vocabularies. So in the writing, Greek, Italian. Of course, Turkey was here present for 500 years. So, but I should say that Albania, it's a beautiful country. I'm not nationalist, you know. I'm a European, should say, guy, and I am also Europeanist. Means that I am eager to see Albania in Europe because Albania deserves it. Deserve what was, what is, and what will be. I'm very confident for Albania. Albanians are Europeans. Their place is there in Europe. And now I'll enter in my, capacities as economist and banker and central banker. Albania does merit to enter in Europe because we have done a great job in the last 30 years, much more better even than the many countries which are in Europe. Means in the development of the economy, in the structural reforms on energy, prices, price of energy, price of bread, liberalizing the current account and the capital accounts, and in the meantime, restructuring the economy, privatizing the economy, privatizing banking, creating new institution, state-owned institution, but in the meantime, also creating and inviting mostly foreign investors to invest in Albania in different fields, in financial and banking for sure. And it was very successful. So from nothing, from only State Bank of Albania, where I used to work from the 85 to 2000, which was one of the three cases in the world when the monobanking was in place, means the central bank, so State Bank of Albania, or in the international world was known as the French name Banque de l'État d'Albanie, founded in 1925, with after so many attempts from different states and different sources of capital. In the end, it was founded in 1925 with a mixed capital from Italy and for here. And then after, so I joined the bank in 1985, State Bank of Albania. We had, instead of a foreign bank like all the other so-called socialist democracies, so ex-Eastern countries had, they had a specific commercial bank which were dealing with the foreign world. Was more or less foreign commercial bank. We had a department, and in the beginning I was working as the economist, and after I became a deputy director of that, then that general manager, and I went back again in the State Bank of Albania. And then in 1991, 92, when I was general manager, I was working means it was a mess. It was hectic, and for foreigners it was very nice. They were coming, Mr. Fullani, you are having a great time. So interesting time in Albania. But in fact, it was interesting, but it was tough. So it was shortage of energy, and a lot of enterprises were closed. The reform began, but imagine first thing to do after that that turmoil and difficulties on changing the regime in 1991, 92. A lot of political challenges in the country, and a lot of new things which are just blowing in your face, You couldn't breathe safe sometimes because you have 100 things to do. It's daily work. The daily work was very difficult because we have been sued from some foreign banks because our debt toward them in the commercial business, but also in the Forex. And we couldn't open a letter of credit for 10,000 euro, $10,000 at that time, or contravalue in lira, Swiss francs, or whatever, or Deutschmark. So, and in the meantime, you should prepare yourself to set up a central bank. And that was one of my duties there. So, working on the law of the central bank, working on the program with the first program with the IMF, which was very important, the World Bank, working with different countries which have been very ready, and I thank them all, which balance of payment. So they brought fresh capital for us. And in the meantime, supported. Countries were bringing here foodstuff, assistance, whatever. And then after we had this problem of reconstructing the economy. It means working day and night to, first of all, to fulfill the needs, even with goods here in the beginning. There was a big shortage in Albania. And then after working very closely, as I said, with the international institutions, mostly IMF and the World Bank, and then after the EBRD and the others, to make, first of all, the legislation in place. So we send it back. I remember when we sent it back the commercial banks to the Ministry of Finance because they were in us, as I mentioned you. The monobanking, we had inside of us we had the agricultural bank, we had the commercial bank, we have the insurance there, so the Institute of Insurance or whatever. And during from 44 to 90, the central bank changed sometimes the position. Sometimes it was under the Minister of Finance, and sometimes it was alone with the general manager. So all these things should have been changed in a very short time, from 90, 92, 93, when we finally set up the central bank. But in the meantime, we were working to privatize these banks and bringing also other banks, which were first of all, the Italian Albanian Bank with EBRD, Albanian government, and Banca di Roma, yes. After they merged with Santo Spirito and Casa di Risparmio, they became bigger, and they became from Banco to Banca di Roma. So finally, we had the private bank in the country, which was very important. And after that, in the years, we privatized the banking sector, brought here very important names from the banking sector, European banking sector. And it was not only that important, but also big names, different countries, different markets, and that gave us the possibility to change very fast and to get the best in international banking, but not only to open the market, support our clients, bring new FDIs, and develop the economy. But the greatest thing was that it was paid off in the years, was the relationship with the IMF and the World Bank and other financial institutions I mentioned you, then after EBRD and the others. We have more than 5 programs with them. I've been part of the programs, but mostly of the time. So we were doing a lot of things. We were educating ourselves. Of course, I was from 85 to 90. We have been very limited people from the bank, which we begin to from 87, 86, 87, we began to go to get experience in the Western commercial banks. So I went to Germany many times. I was there for a long time. And then to Switzerland. Then when we opened in 1991, we went to America. And we got a lot of things to learn. And then with the IMF and the World Bank, it was really, how should I say, embracing in yourself whatever it takes as knowledge, I say, you know. But in the meantime, the beauty was that this knowledge immediately you put to the economy, you put on the field. So you see the result, and that was exciting because you see the development. In the beginning, we thought 5 years, maximum 10 years. We're in Europe, you do everything and whatever. But it's not like that. It takes time. And I think the success, one of the cornerstone of our success in the economy was because we have been committed to the structural reforms, working hard on the program with the IMF and the World Bank, getting the best from that, and trying to restructure the economy, but always looking very carefully in the macroeconomic stability, financial stability, the good health of the banking and financial sector, and try to coordinate as much as we can with the fiscal policy, with the Minister of Finance and the government. So I've been there present from that until 2014. I was 10 years governor. It coincided with the most, I think, challenging but also difficult times in the financial system, with the biggest crisis ever happened in 2008. So during all the crisis, I was the governor. And when I say what we did before paid off, is because since 2005, we tried to increase the interest rate. So we have been prepared when the crisis came. The system was solid. So no leverage, good deposits, stable exchange rate under the free floating regime, and inflation under control. We had arranged 2 to 3%, and 2 to 4%. Then we fixed the point with the inflation target in the 3%. So a lot of efforts and a long time. So when the crisis came in 2008, we had rather 3 years working for the challenges. And when they came, we had been prepared. Banking sector was resilient. The central bank was fully equipped, and we were introducing the inflation targeting. Of course, in my opinion, inflation targeting was not because it was fashionable, because going from monetary one to the inflation target, it's a big difference. But I didn't consider that like a flying carpet that send you everywhere. So it will be how should I say, a medicine for all the problems. No. The beauty of that is that with the mission of creating the inflation targeting, changing the regime, we reconstructed the whole infrastructure of the central bank. Department-wise, people, training, philosophy, and we created these anchors, domestic and foreign anchors, and having two objectives, like monetary policy. We emphasized a lot and created a special department on financial stability. And then we created another relationship with the fiscal one, with the Minister of Finance. For us, decision on monetary policy is crucial. And this is independent decision of the board of the central bank. And was the same, for example, for the Minister of Finance, the fiscal one, to the tax policy and whatever. But we try to harmonize as much as possible our two policies. So like dancing together, you know, we make more transparent the central bank, accountable, and more open to the public. So our anchors, domestic anchors, which is the general public, there are different institutions, domestic institutions, ministries, and whatever, universities, students, you know, it worked very much to see the result of anchoring our expectation with that. And we use the foreign anchors like the IMF, World Bank, different financial institutions, to have these foreign anchors. The EU, we opened open discussion with the EU at that time, and with institutions, financial institutions in the EU, and that was great, you know, to know each other and to be step by step in their philosophy of banking and finance, and introducing that in the country, and also inviting them with full transparency to work together, so to see the reality in Albania. Then we strengthen the cooperation with the banking sector, with the central banks. So mostly of the IT preparation, which took inflation target, which took more than 3 years, more than 50 people working on that. A lot of advice from the resident IMF advisor and World Bank advisor and the EU advisors, you know, gave us the possibility to speak English. So the Central Bank of Albania were speaking English. Only the meetings of the board of the Central Bank were done in Albania. You know, everything else, formal, informal meetings, preparation for the board meetings, you know, different sections of committees that we had prepared in order to go to the board with the best proposal. And that we got a lot of experience from the Fed. Fed has been very, very productive with that. The Federal Reserve and also the Fed of New York, which gave us a lot of support. And then after with the Bundesbank, Banque de France, Banca d'Italia, Swedish Central Bank, the Danish one. So, but also Spanish and Portugal, and the Belgium Central Bank, Central Bank of Israel gave a lot of assistance in the inflation targeting, but also Bank of Turkey, Czech and Polish central banks, and Bulgarian, Romanian one. So we took the best of them, of these banks. Sorry not to forget any of them, but we did a great job of bringing all the experience of them and putting in place changing the monetary system, which was a big challenge because people rather believed in the beginning that small open economy with the free floating could introduce the inflation targeting. But in fact, as I mentioned to you, the anchors, you know, the anchors that we put, foreign and domestic one, they work very well. And then we are also serving these anchors. We're not a job done, you know. We're in all the means, as I mentioned, a part of the monetary inflation and so monetary policy and financial stability, we put as a priority financial literacy. So financial education was very important for us, and we did a lot. There we began the first step of money inclusion, and trying to be as much as transparent, but also communicating openly with the markets in different ways, using the media, using our publication, but also using the vocal intervention of the governor or other members of the board and whatever was it necessary to talk. So I remember once it was very nice in some of the programs we were doing for different kinds of children, for example, of different institutions, means schools, but also orphans. We were doing a lot of with them to educate them financially. And once I told him that one of the guys, it came in a little guy and said, how are you? What are you doing? So trying to talk a bit on the financial issues, and said, we will do it because in the basis on friendship. I told to him. And I asked him, do you know what is friendship? He told me and you. And since then, I understood that so important it's for a central banker to talk with the people without looking at the age. So every age needs to be educated. Sure. And education makes easier the work of the central bank, which is a very difficult job. Many people think, as you said, that central bank does have one thing: putting money into the market and then withdrawing the market. That's all, and you can keep the inflation under control, financial stability, and keep economy working, keep commercial banks working, but it's not like that. So it's art, You have to analyze the market. So we don't have a laboratory. We cannot make in the central bank, a part of the
experiments.
Yes, a part of what we do in the projections or models are there always to be seen and to be corrected and whatever. So the economy, it's when we get the information on it, and how much you try to be in there and to make this cooperation between you and the economy, and the information you get, it's a real one. It helps you a lot to keep the inflation under control and safe and sound the banking sector.
Now, a lot of people hear a lot of these terms that you're sharing, that you're throwing out, but they have no idea because they lack, like you mentioned, financial literacy. Now, people hear the word central bank and automatically they think evil organization that is out here printing money to make the richer rich and keeping the poor poor. But as you mentioned, central banking is an art, and there's a 500-year track record of stability, of fortifying this ecosystem. Can you talk to me a little bit about the history of the central bank?
The history. So we are not historians. We are central banks. We are bankers, but history is very important. In order to go ahead, you have to always see back what's behind, and that's experience. That you find a lot of similarities with boom bust circles, crisis, and nothing comes from nothing. And nothing is done in one day. It takes time, mostly mostly money and finance. So, and the money has been always in the center of the society, for good or bad. And nobody knows who came first, money or debt. But I think debt came first than the money and credit. If you go back, we see the necessity of creating a central bank, 17th century in Stockholm, Swedish central bank, which not by chance is one of the very, strong institution and forward-looking institution even today with a lot of innovation embrace in their belly. And that was a necessity for the economy, necessity to provide more money and substitute the old with the new money. And of course, problems with the trade and navigating around the world, the fleet, all these things bringing more goods. And as I mentioned to you, crisis, you import or you export them, so they import the crisis, and that they need more financing. And that was the beginning of how the private bank were used also as a vehicle of the government to get some elements of the central bank, but was not a central bank, was a private one. And because the same thing happened in England. Still in the 17th century, trade was very important. The empire was growing, and it was needed in the city of London, which was really a city in development and continuous changing and becoming a center of trade and finance. That was a necessity to have this private bank, so institution of private bank, having some element of the central bank. But only in the 1703, I think, in 18th century, that we had, for the first time, Begalf in the Lombard Street. He mentioned for the first time twice the central bank. So he was the first who mentioned that.
As a new terminology.
A new terminology. He was the first one. And then he, of course, appears during the years in the central banking, in the Central Bank of London, because with the new decree that he did afterwards, I think 1873, for giving more, I think, philosophy of the central bank, and creating the first mechanism of the central bank, like creating a rate to be given to the commercial bank where they have been in difficulties, much more costly than the other one, but also creating other facilities like repo now, reverse repo at that time, to put in liquidity and to withdraw liquidity, and also to foresee when the crisis comes to give cheaper money. And that has been the work of Begalf. So we have signs of the real central bank. Of course, there's been many problems, and after, because it was a discussion, coin and paper based on gold, or without no base on gold. And that was used. That was Ricardo was in favor of backing gold, and some others were not. And some of them convinced the King of France to do that, and the King of France abused with the excess liquidity, producing more, inflation came,
Printing
money, and then has been the bank run, and so-called the Mississippi case. So the discussion came in London, but London was more, as I said, Ricardo was more conservative on the issue on backing in gold. And for that was created, and still back of that created two departments. And one department in the central bank. But the central bank was also a commercial bank, working, and even today, if you go there, there are the windows that show the commercial banking activity. Created two departments. One was called the issuing department. It was very modern for that time to have this, which is also the denomination of today. You know, the name is issuing department, and the other one was banking department. So the issuing department is the new money were coming backed in gold. The other one were not backed in gold. And so they coexisted for some times together. Then,
So you would know the difference.
yes, of course. Then after we have, in 1920, 25, big states, Germany and France and England, they tried to have some gold arrangement, but it took only 3-4 years, and then collapsed. And then after we have the Bretton Woods. But I mean, all this time from mid-17th century to First World War has been times of consolidating not the currency, but also the money itself. So, and that we have a lot of literature that shows how was considered the link between money and wealth, money and credit, different kind of money, as I mentioned to you, the gold, not gold, and the others. So all these things and the reforms done, they prepare the ground for the Bretton Woods, but with a lot of challenges and a lot of wars in the middle, you know? And for that reason, we have a very nice expression from Victor Hugo. And he's, I think, from the first, which wrote something about the European Central Bank. They said, we need a bank to be in coin, but also other paper. A bank which served to 200 million men, which will finish all this kind of currencies all over the world, the life of them, which have the stamp of the princes, and which show the history of misery. And here are the first attempt then to have this the first beginning of the thought to think about the European Central Bank, and then the euro, how the euro was born. So coming back now, when we see, for example, a lot of flourishing digital currencies, and of course creating a very a big market on that. I always go back to history and looks how the money is created and what is behind the money, what is in the value of money, how the value change, what is the exchange of money, and what is the system of behind the money and the financial sector and the banking sector. So how they have been living in all this period of time. And you see that you need, nothing comes from nothing, You cannot create money from nothing. You need a state, you need the economy, and then after you can have a currency, you can have the money, and that is very important to be understood. I'm not against of all this crypto or other initiatives but we need to regulate the system.
Talk to me about this concept of fiat versus backed by gold, because to a person that lives at an individual level, let's say they live in their own little village and they have a small ecosystem where innovation is not an element of importance. They're like, okay, give me something that is backed by gold or backed by a hard asset, because they look at something from a micro perspective. But at a macro perspective, there isn't per se enough gold in circulation to be able to empower growth in an economy, which is why you have the thesis for fiat and the ability to kind of move money in and out of the system to see growth, like you mentioned. What is your opinion on fiat currency as opposed to money that is backed by assets that have historic value, such as gold or silver?
Of course, fiat is it's important and there are all these years, centuries, has been as alternative currency. It was always, as I mentioned to you, has been always in the economy, has been boom and bust, and high inflation, low productivity, low employment, crisis, from different sources, from different countries, different scale of the crisis. But now crises with the globalizations are becoming more relevant and more strong and quicker than before. I think the discussion of gold and not gold, we tried that in the Bretton Woods, and putting the dollar in the middle of all the other currencies and giving them the most important role was not by chance. Very big economy coming strong from the war, solid economy, challenging economy, country of democracy, great values of democracy, supported by a good army which came from the Second World War as a Victorian, victory, but also modernizing them and keeping strong and creating a hegemonic role in the world. So, and people were admiring America and trying to go there with open policy of building up new life and developing fast the economy, productivity in place. And then we have the NATO, we have other organizations, which all of them, the creation of the dollar backed in gold, but also dollar as a reserve currency and dollar as a SDR, so the currency of the special drawing rights of the IMF. And that, of course, gave a lot of strength, and the economy was going ahead. On the other side, we had the eastern part with ruble. So the ruble couldn't get that possibility. Even they have been on the part of the victorious of the very important part of it in the Second World War, and of course it's millions of people living there, and a big area of so-called, as I mentioned, Eastern democracies and so on, which have been well equipped for changing after world to get in place the industry, the economy, the banking, and whatever. But still, the ruble couldn't get that chance because of the philosophy, and the regime, the communist regime, which collapsed in Albania, and I've been witnessing from 85 to 2000, the end of the regime, the collapse in productivity, in trade, in services, in banking, run to debt, run to foreign debt, and then collapse the state. That means I have seen that, so I know the same happened, and the ruble couldn't live alone in many countries of these so-called democracies because mostly of the goods trade with the prices of stock exchange. They were being quoted in dollars, so we had two accounts, one in ruble and another one in US dollar, clearing so-called US dollar. But it was in US dollar, denominated in US dollar. So the other part couldn't get it. And then we had the 71, when Nixon mostly lost 70% of the reserves to keep the dollar. And at the end they said, no, just liberalize it. And we have seen the correction in other currencies, beginning from the sterling, the British sterling. Yeah, I'm going to the other currencies in the world, German lira and whatever, and that began a new era, new era for the currency, for dollar, but also for the other ones. So money got again a new face. But in the meantime, after 70s and 80s, began this great moderation, which with central banking, with universal commercial banking, which put in a lot of money into the economy. We have development on that. Then the crisis again began, boom and bust. And then we have the 90s, and then we have the preparation of another bubble, which came, blowed up in 2007, 2008. In the meantime, we had a lot of other crises like
.com,
but also some different kind of crisis. But when you say for general crisis, the biggest worldwide crisis of 2008, it was just like the atomic bomb. And then we had another thing. We had the 9/11. So I have seen a lot of these episodes in the history, the last 30 to 40 years in the history of central banking and commercial banking. And I think it comes naturally now after all these things. So we have 14, 15, 17 years, very, very long crisis from 2008. Then we had the pandemic. Then we had the war. So the war said is the continuation of politics with other means, but the war, it's terrible. So the war destroyed everything. You can talk maybe later on about this, what is
the
happening
implications,
in the economy, the implication, and where we are today in the new concept of money. So I will. I said to you, now is the time to have another kind of money, the new ecosystem of the new era of the banking and finance.
I look forward to talking about this new era that you advocate for. But before we talk about that, I want to, you mentioned this word philosophy. So you mentioned the philosophy of the World Bank. You mentioned the philosophy of the IMF. Can you talk to me a little bit about this philosophy? What is this philosophy? What does it mean? And why do countries have to adhere to it in order to participate?
Right. All these institutions were created, and others also, like Marshall Plan, were created in the package, the Bretton Woods, and also the Washington, the Washington Consensus. It's very important to put all the important points of developing the economies. So it was not just overnight. It came that gold, the dollar was converted in gold, and next day a new currency come and do miracles, and that's all. No, it was, as I mentioned before, it was backed by a lot of arrangement on that. And the Washington Consensus is very important because everything was there. It was revised later on because they forgot one thing. One thing was forgotten in the Washington Consensus, the competitiveness, which is the most important precondition of productivity. But everything else is there. So the IMF and the World Bank were created in that spirit. So countries gather together, pay quotas, create the currency, SDR, as I said, and everybody has the right, when he needs, to have a program with IMF, or in the absence of the program, you have the Article 4, which is more advisory one, so it's not obligatory. The program is obligatory, and the program, if you have deviation, as they call waves from the program, you are getting to be, you get punished on that, on the economical context. But that means that was created specifically having the resilience against the crisis. So prepare all the countries. When the crisis come, the IMF come. But the IMF is still there, and he support you not only in the time of crisis, he support you during all the year, as I mentioned, under Article 4 or with the program. We had the chance that in all these years, we have signed 5 arrangements with the fund, it's 4 or 5 years, and we had a lot of, as I mentioned, Article 4, and with the World Bank, of course, which gave you tremendous support, not only for investment, but also training. Training is very important. You cannot have a central banker or a banker overnight. You need experience, and you need money, and that is the IMF and the World Bank give you training, but not only to the people training, but also backing you to create a new infrastructure which make you modernize the central bank, but also the other institutions, And for that, they did the reform, maybe it's more than 15 years, 20 years ago. It was the voice and sit, giving more voice to the smaller countries, not only the big ones. So being more open and strengthening the support for even for countries in need, small countries or underdeveloped, developed, or developing countries. I have my consideration that the big countries, they didn't need the IMF. And in their philosophy, they saw always the IMF and the World Bank for countries in transition, developing countries, and that in a sense that they did very well, because we got a lot of assistance and a lot of programs from them, and it worked. But on the other side, when the crisis came, 2008 crisis, these countries we have been in much more better shape than them. Not only as a composition and I mean of the central bank but also in the market, the infrastructure in the market, what it helps. So we created, as I mentioned to you before, some other very important things. For example, we did the Credit Information Bureau, which was, even many countries in the EU, they didn't have it because of the contradiction. And some of them didn't even today have it because they have a lot of problems with the trade unions and whatever. So we did that, and it's very successful for us, even today. Insurance deposit scheme, which were really another very good element in the financial system. So it helped to us to modernize that. And the IMF, as I said, is the cornerstone of our success, as not only for us. I mean, for all the countries where they have been working. There have been mistakes, for sure. They did wrong things, I think, because now it's much more liberal, it's much more flexible, I should say, than liberal. It became in the years, but before it was 10, 15 years was very conservative sometimes and strengthened the economy too much and creating a lot of problems in the economy instead of doing otherwise, has been creating even crisis. But that was mentioned, that people know that, they know themselves. What should I say for the future? I think they have been executing their role during the COVID. They did well, so they immediately gave the quotas to the economy, respective economies. But in general, I think they should be much more active, much more open, and they should, in my opinion, give more power to the Article 4 in the absence of the program. Because some countries has been using, the IMF like, in my opinion, like a hospital. You go there when you need, then you go out again, and you begin from the beginning, which is, of course, jeopardize your philosophies, and then premises of the crisis come. But normally, having IMF on your side and the World Bank, it's very good, and also other institutions like EBRD, and now they have the Bank of the EU, and so I mean it's a very supportive element for not only for countries in transition or countries in the emerging markets, but also for developing countries. And now, even these countries are, I think, understood during the crisis that the IMF is needed, and there have been some discussions, and even still there is discussion to create the IMF of Europe, for example, after creating, the Ministry of Finance and creating establishing the supervision, and so I think it's a very strong element in the development of the economy, and make you more resilient from the crisis, and strengthen your capacities.
In 1971, the US dollar gets depegged from the gold standard, as you mentioned. You look at the purchasing power of the dollar, and the purchasing power of the dollar is on a decline. You look at somebody that would work a factory job in the 40s or 50s, have the ability to purchase a home or a car or pay for university tuition. taking into account inflation as well as the dilution of the currency because of the introduction of money, what is the sustainability of the US dollar, in your opinion, long term? Is it the fact that they have, a really good army, that they are the world reserve currency? What is holding the United States as a global superpower in its current form now that the purchasing power is 99% less of what it used to be? And you can notice this because you work a regular job in the United States, you make $45,000 a year. But on the other hand, it costs you $250,000 to buy a house, aka introducing mortgages and things of this nature, which 100 years ago may not have been necessary. What is your opinion and what is your philosophy on a personal level with the future of the dollar, with the strength of the dollar, and with the purchasing power that people get to experience when they trade their time for money?
Right. Dollar does not live in the space. Dollar, you can touch the dollar, and you can read there, "In God we trust," and it's not occasionally done that. So the importance of that was given to dollar is that it's something something coming from God. It's very important, and the value, and from 1900 means, yes, from 20th century that we have the Fed. The Fed has been a very well-organized, strong institution, which created credibility in that with their policies, And you have that they have the dual mandate, inflation and the employment. As we mentioned before, we try to explain where we are today. The crisis under the globalization process took everybody by surprise. Not only 2007, but then we had the pandemic, which came again a surprise, and then the war. So that means that the worldwide financial sector and banking sector under the globalization, but the whole society, the whole life, geopolitical and that. So we face populism. After that, we face a lot of, how should I say, the protectionism on the other side, and of course a lot of inequality. So having that in place, and having a geopolitical problem on that side, of course that complicates the decision making of the policymaker during the crisis. There are ideas, but also I think are proven now that the Fed was in delay getting the proper measure against the inflation, and they consider it temporary. In fact, it was not temporary. They enter in delay, and then after the same thing it was for the ECB, but the ECB took some measure after that, being more consistent and being banking wise. It was more easier than America being more stocks, shares, and then we have the in the meantime we had the decision making of the central banks. It's the Fed and also the ECB. But still the decision making, I think, came in delay but also were not transmitted very well to the markets, because the markets came after that and trying to, how should I say, to push more against the central bank, trying to have the fears of deflation or recession. And in this respect, I think there have been some very cautious movement on the Fed. Instead, the experience of the Fed has been that the Fed was always very equipped to react. And then, not to forget the Paul Volcker, which found that it increased the interest rate until 22%, and he brought down then after the inflation one, because for a central bank, the inflation, it's the main target. And Fed has fantastic expertise, and they know well how to fight it because they have done it. But it happened that they have been reluctant also after that. And now they do stop. Gradualism, it's not the way in central banking fighting inflation. You need persistence. You need courage and fight with all the ammunition you have in order to bring down inflation. Because of inflation, it's the reason of unemployment, of the exchange rate moves, on inequality, bring the poor poorer, and then create premises for breaking down the economy. So inflation, it's the core business of the central bank. Gradualism is not. We have to use all the ammunition like antibiotic. So when you begin it, you begin with a big dose and you go on until inflation is done. Oh, we are in this situation today. I think the ECB has done a good job. ECB took seriously, of course, even inside of that, in the governing council has been discussion, but I think some of the board members has been very active, and I think mostly supporting the fighting inflation persistently, without any stop, and they're doing that. And I think signs are good for 20. Of course, it will not get the norms even in 24, but GDP is going better than foreseen last year, and then the supply chain is reorganizing on that, and inflation is still core inflation is up, but with premises to go down. So the markets of tomorrow will change. So the financial ecosystem will change. We will not have for sure anymore 1 or 2, 3 centers. The world will be multipolar world. Naturally, the dollar is losing some ground on hegemony, and then after as a reserve currency, but also as a trade, but still have more than 60%. So it's the economy is strong as per the Yellen economy. The banking sector is resilient, and the investors. So the balance sheet of the investors are okay. So it's a big economy. It's competitive economy, and will remain like that. The problem is that others will grow. China, India, the BRICS one, big number economies, and then the new ecosystem, how it will come. I think America is working hard for the dollar-denominated CBDC, having a lot of ideas, and I think it will go faster than it was foreseen. They are looking a lot on not only the technology, but also on the composition of that, mostly on the privacy and cybersecurity. I think the CBDC will help the dollar and will help the American economy being much more, I should say, flexible, resilient, and much more competitive. Because the new financial world, the new financial system will be quite different from the existing one, as far as I foresee.
I want to talk about the CBDCs. I want to talk about the future of the financial system. But before we close this segment, I want to circle back on the purchasing power of the dollar and the dilution of the purchasing power of the dollar and of other currencies as time goes by. Can you speak a little bit to that?
It's inflation. What to say? We have talked about that. As long as you have inflation, high inflation, and the economy coming weak after all this prolonged crisis, and worse, and disruption in the supply chain, and new coming actors in the picture, and a lot of geopolitics in the world. For sure that you have this. They're quasi everywhere. You have in both hemispheres, but also the other ones, because it's as you see now, the new discussion between Yellen and the Chinese government is to cooperate, and also the Blinken one was very good. So we need the cooperation. We have to work together and compete together, but we need the cooperation, and that is I think it's very clever. We have to talk, to coordinate. As I said to you, the dollar based in gold in the Bretton Woods, but also in the 71, it was always discussed. Should be discussed in G7, G20, and it should. The big actors should talk, and if you talk, for sure you find a way how to smooth all these geopolitical problems we have and stop the war. This is a must. We should stop the war.
From an entrepreneurial perspective, people talk about hedges against inflation.
Right.
They tell you buy real estate, or they tell you to buy real estate. They tell you to be invested in the stock market. What is your opinion with regards to hedging yourself against the inevitable inflation because of all these variables that seem to be outside of
right.
control?
The first book I read a long time ago, 35 years ago, about hedging, began with the phrase of Andre C. Andre was a wholesaler of big wholesalers from Switzerland, selling sugar and mostly sugar and wheat stuff. He was very strong, and he was saying, hedging is buy high, you sell low, and still make profit. So,
so simple.
that is my answer on that.
That's a good answer.
Thank you very much.